Welcome everybody. This is going to be a little different from your standard deep dive webinar. This is Webinars X Communities. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Hope Roth. I'm the ecosystem platform manager for communities, which is a real fancy way of saying I make content so that hopefully it makes your lives easier. So Communities is our developers website. If you are not on Communities, please join it. We're going to talk about that in a second. But we really hope that the stuff that we put on there, if it takes me 8 hours to make something work, but it saves everybody else 8 hours because they can copy and paste from it, that's great for me. That's great for you. That's great for Q-SYS. So that's really my goal. So today we're going to be looking at a couple of the files that I've made and kind of just showing you where things are. So usually on a deep dive, we would kind of go in and teach you stuff, and we'd be, copying and pasting and typing and all of that. Today, it's going to be a little bit more just showing you where stuff is so that you can go and download it yourself. But the nice thing about that is usually you get the file after. Today, you can get it right now. So I'm going to show you a couple of those first of all. So for those of you, it would help if I shared my screen. So I'm going to just share my whole screen out because we're going to be bopping around between windows. So there you go. So for those of you who are not familiar with communities, if you go to developers.qsc.com, you can sign in, and there's all sorts of great stuff there. It's a great resource for folks because there's just all sorts of really smart people on there. So if you go over and click on the exchange button, it will take you to the code exchange. My stuff happens to be at the top right now because I have posted a bunch of stuff recently, some updates, but there's stuff from all sorts of people there. So all sorts of one of the things I really love about the AV community is that folks love to share things and make life easier for other people. So you can go on there and there's all sorts of things that people have written that you can go and grab. So go to the exchange. If you follow me on communities, so you can get to all of the stuff we're going to talk about today from here. You can also go and get it straight from GitHub. So GitHub is a version control platform that allows you to make sure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to your files. We're going to be doing some content about that later this year, and we don't have time to go over everything about GitHub right now, but if we have some time at the end of the webinar today, I will show you how to go in and grab stuff. So today, we are going to be looking at reference files, specifically the CSS reference file. That's the first one we're going to look at. And then we're going to look at the system customization file. And then we're going to be looking at my UCI scripting script notifications file. So if you want to download those right now, you can go in to GitHub. And Tyler, if you don't mind just sticking that in as an announcement so folks can get that.
Yep.
So you go in, you click on reference file, say you want to grab that first file, and then you should see a little code thing right there. For those of you who are familiar with source control and already have it set up, if you say open with GitHub Desktop, you can clone it to your computer, and that's the best way to do it because then if we push updates, you just have to hit a little refresh button and you get all the files automatically where you want them to go. For today, if you don't have all of that set up, if you just say download zip, you'll get a zip file of all the files that are in there. There's a few things in there. I've put the CSS as a zip file. I've made a user component in there. There's a couple. We're gonna be adding a lot more stuff into this reference files repository. But for today, we're going to be looking at this CSS reference.qsys file. So I'll give everybody a second to pull that up if that's something that you're interested in. I have it on my computer ready to go. So I'm going to pull it up. One of the things.
Hope it will not let me post the announcement.
Okay.
You might have to do that
All right.
if you see that option. If not, I can figure out a different way, but it's not giving me the option to post
See
it.
polls, Q&A. For a chat option.
What we could do is someone just ask a question and we'll post it in there.
There you go.
So,
I was just thinking
someone
that.
asks a question and we'll put it in there and then everyone can see it. Hey, there you go. Thanks, Jake. Hey, look at all these helpful people.
Or
It's
you
kind
could,
of funny that they can post, but we can't.
yeah. The question.
Yeah.
There you go. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, William. I'm going to leave these open so that they show up, even though it pains my brain to see 2 notifications. All right. So, and if you can't download these right now, don't worry about it. You can download them at any point, but and you won't need them. We're just going to be doing sort of a guided tour today. I will say before we get started that I did add a clarification in the README to this file. So this first one is a CSS reference, and I really want to emphasize the reference part of it. It is designed to copy and paste small portions out of it. Please don't take this full CSS and use it in a real job. So as this is a large CSS style with many images in it, this file should be used for reference only. No smoke and mirrors. This will run on glass. I have a TSC here at my house. It does run on it, but it's going to be dog slow if you pull the whole thing in, because we've kind of taken every possible option of something that you can do and put it in one file. So please copy and paste things out of it. Don't start from this style. So with that, we will go through. So this is still our old branding. We're working on some updated versions for the files. So just expect that you will see that as we go through these. This is kind of how all of our files from communities are set up, is I've got little numbers up here so you can kind of go through. It's a little bit of choose your own adventure, but I kind of lead you through it. There's always going to be an instruction page, which will sort of talk about the things that are in the file. And then you kind of go from there. This one, because it's sort of a tutorial reference file, we have instructions that are on the actual UCI. So we'll go ahead and emulate, and we'll go back to the first page. So all of this text in here is coming in via some script controls, so that I had one place where I could update stuff. So all of the sort of text that's on those page just lives in here. So that's what that is. And then we also have a page of things that I am actually controlling. So that's in here as well. But the meat and potatoes of this file is really here in this example UCI. I'm not going to read everything on here, but we'll just kind of go through and click some buttons. So on this first page, we kind of talk about CSS, what's there, and then you have the ability to sort of see the panel. So this is what it looks like without CSS. So as you can see, CSS is very powerful in terms of making a nice looking UCI, legible, usable, all of that. Here is the sort of default CSS. And then the other thing we've done in this file is we've created an extended CSS and showed you how to use that. So I'm just going to pull this open real quick. So this is the base CSS that I wrote. I've got this open in Visual Studio Code. If you download this file and you go into the design resources of the file, you can save this to your hard drive, so you have access to this as well. And I've really just thrown everything in here that I could think of that you might want to copy and paste out. So we start with a regular CSS, and then we extend it. So basically you can see in here, there's this @import URL, and it's basically importing the CSS example, which is that base class, and then we can add stuff to it. So in this example, we are taking that and then changing the colors. So these are all CSS variables that we're changing the colors with, and then we're also changing the background image on the page. So that's what that is. And then behind the scenes, this is a really great tool for if you have different looks that you want to have on your panels. We're using the style controller. So literally these buttons right here are just these buttons styled out. So you can switch between different styles on a UCI. So this is a great example for, say, if you had a light theme and a dark theme, or you could use this for if you needed like a high contrast version for people who with visual impairments. Just if you feel like changing the colors, there's all sorts of options for using it. So that's what this guy is. So then we'll just take you through all of these. Oh, and just a little housekeeping note. If you have questions, please feel free to throw those in the chat as they come up. If it's something where I have explained something badly and we need to explain it for all of you going forward, Tyler's going to very nicely interrupt me and we will answer that. If we're in the flow, we might answer questions about this particular file at the end of this section, but we're basically we're going to do rolling questions. So feel free to throw those in there, and I'll try and get all your questions about this file answered before we move on to the next one.
And Jeff, she meant Q&A, not chat.
Oh yeah, Q&A. Yeah.
So, yeah, Q&A.
Yes, Q&A. Thank you. All right, so I've broken this file up into different components. So on the left-hand side of it, we have sort of the big components, and then there's a drop-down box on each of these for sort of subcomponents of that. So if you're just trying to style text and you want to see your different options, you're going to click on that button, and then we're going to go over here and we're going to click some different things within it. So we start with headers. So header is a what's the word I'm looking for, Tyler? It's like a static thing. You can't, they don't have a you can't have like a code header or anything like that. It's sort of just like a drawing tool. It puts these little lines in here. So it's nice to stick at the top of something and the lines kind of grow and change. A lot of people like the look of these, but they wish that they could change it. So one of the things that we have in here is I show you how to use a UCI variable that goes to a CSS variable that will actually change this text for you. So right now it says hello world because we're nerds and that's what we say. We're computer programmers. But I can add a little exclamation point, and the fun thing about UCI variables is you have to like click away from them. So there we go. I went in and changed that, clicked away from it to make it show up, and now it says hello world. So there's an option if you want to change the text, but you want to use a header. And then we just have some static text in there as well. Fields are our text blocks. So we have, this is a text entry. This is, and then these are just text fields where you can see stuff. So we can say, hello, world. It is hard to type in front of other people. And this is different from that UCI variable. And I'll just show you this behind the scenes. That is these guys in here. So I was typing into hello world right there, and then we're just using this pin right here, and it goes into the text display. So text edit is that you can go in and you can make changes. Text display is read only. And one of the things that we got in one of the newer versions of Designer is if you go into your design elements, the toolbox, we're emulating, so it's not going to show up. In the toolbox, there's an option to do a read-only text field, so you no longer have to go in and block that out. Then we have combo boxes, which are our drop-downs. I kind of sprinkled in some CSS variables as we went, so I will show those as we go. So this is, there's all sorts of different ways to style a combo box. Where we can use this combo box to pick a font. So one of the things I show you in here is how to change the font of a panel using these. So all of these first ones are built into Designer. So all the way through Slavo 27px. These are built-in fonts in Designer. You also have the option in CSS to import a TTF or an OTF font. So I show you in the CSS for this how to do that. OTF fonts get a little funky. You have to type them a little differently from a TTF. So I threw one in there so you have that for reference. And I literally open up this file all the time and copy and paste myself to make sure that I get it right. I picked this really this font that you should never use on an actual UCI, just so you can really see that this is not a font that was built. It was not built into Designer for a reason, let's say. And then here's another one that also was not built into Designer for a reason. And then we can go back to the CSS default and have it go back. I'm kind of breezing through these pretty quick because hopefully you should be able to grab these from it. And then this is a list box. So similar to a combo box where you can change what is in it. It has a little scroll bar in there. And then each of these is like a list item. So we're using this one to demonstrate how you can use CSS and UCI variables to change your border width. Doesn't that look just great? Or you can just go back to the default. We also show you how to style buttons. These go back also to our UCI controls. So we have some momentary, some LEDs, some toggles that go to LEDs, a trigger, and then almost everything in this file is built in CSS. It's very little scripting just to kind of keep it pure. One of the few things we did have to do for that, however, is there's a state trigger example in there. So I've created a state trigger that you can click and it'll kind of go through all the states like a little round robin. We show you how to do the value pressed, all of that. So there's our little momentary that we click on, we have a toggle, trigger, all of that. So this is sort of standard buttons, just changing colors and stuff. You can also use images for buttons. So there's a toggle with an image. A trigger can be anything. It can even be a dinosaur. So there's my dinosaur button. And then you can also use icons. So this is a question that we get a lot is, you know, where's your checkbox? Where's your radio button? Where's your toggle? All of that. The answer is you can have whatever you want for those. So these are also toggles that go back to that other one, and we can change states with those. So here's an example. And this is using an icon font. And then here's some stuff for graphics. So you can style a group box is kind of considered a graphic. You can style them in a bunch of different ways. So this one is just like your standard, dragged it out, changed a few colors. You can set the background using a gradient. So we have an example of how to do that. Here's another example of how you can change colors using CSS variables. So we've created basically when you do a CSS variable or a UCI variable, if you name it exactly the same as a CSS variable, so this one's called dynamic color one. And then over here, I have created a CSS variable called dynamic color one. You'll notice that I have set it to be transparent. That is not transparent. It's because we've gone in here and we've changed the color. So I can go in here and I can change this to be whatever I want. And everywhere where I have used dynamic color one in my CSS, it will change to be that color. And then we can also have an image of a little kitty cloud. Polygons get styled. This can get styled the same way. So the standard way to do a polygon. So this is that one where you just go and you click and you have it be whatever shape you want. Usually these end up as transparent or, you know, you kind of link them to a button. But if you wanted, you can style them the same way you would style a regular button or a group box. And then this is one that I point people to all the time. Base 64 encoding is basically you're using base 64, which is, I don't know, what's the best way to describe that, Tyler?
I mean, it's a URL encoded graphic language. Like
Yeah, so yeah, it's basically like you can go to like just Google like base 64 encode image. You can find all these different websites where you basically drop an image in there and it will turn it into text.
Yep.
And there's two ways to encode it to a button. One is using the legend and one is using the content of that button. And so the content is using a CSS variable and we're setting that. So you can see in here that there's this background image. So that's where this is coming from. And then I've put in here just a little selector where it's changing this text, and then we're using some scripting to take this and encode it. So we're on a rainbow right now, but let's have it be pizza. So now it's pizza. It can be anything I wanted to be, so it decided to be pizza. So if you're looking for ways to do some dynamic images or to pull like a more complicated image, this is a great option for that. People do this a lot for like a media preview. If you're like pulling in stuff where, you know, you might have album art or something like that, this is an option for there. I'm not going to show you how to actually do it, but it should be pretty easy to copy and paste this out of this. And as always, if you have any if you go to play with this and it doesn't work for you, please post on communities and all the helpful people there will help you. All right, so now we get into meters, knobs, and faders and all the different styles for them, style options for them. We are in emulation, so there's no audio. So the way I am getting this to actually show you what it looks like as it changes is we're actually using an LFO, low frequency oscillator. So I can turn it on and off in here from my custom control. And basically I just take the output of the LFO, I send it to a meter, and then I put the meter on this page and I styled it. So this is the same meter copied and pasted to a bunch of different places and styled it differently. So here's a plug for the help file. The help file for all of this is super helpful. It takes you through all of this stuff. It's got examples. I work with our documentation team all the time. So if there's anything that you're like, this should be really in the CSS help file, let us know and we will get that added. But it goes through all the different meter types with examples. So here's a classic. Basically, I dragged it in. This is the equivalent of using the controls in Designer to update it. We're just doing it in CSS. If we want to take it a step farther, we can use a layer. So now we have the options of setting the background. We can change the size of the gauge. Now we have the option to do a gradient, right? So I have this fun little rainbow gradient. One thing to notice about this, and I left it like this on purpose where it's got all this space. Once you get into the layer options, you're going to want to have different ones for horizontal and vertical because of the way we're doing the sizing. So that's all of that in there. And then if we want to get real fancy, we can go in and do a film strip. Big props to Thomas Holt-Ronzi. I 100% just stole this from him. This is a segmented gauge that he created. So this is how you can get the little green and yellow and red bars, is by using the film strip style. So that's meters. I'm anti putting knobs on UCIs, but if you have to, this is how you style them. They have fewer options. So we have our classic and our layer. The big thing with knobs is you got to make sure that you have the right the range is right, so that in order to make the styling work. So this one is an integer knob, and I have also paired this with an LED. So this shows you how to change the color to match the state of that. So you have your classic and your layer. We also have a film strip. So we can have this one. This is a segmented. This one is the reason you shouldn't copy and paste this whole file out, because this is literally 100 images. And then we do have an LED that goes with this one that will change colors as it goes through the range. So that's that one. And then we get into faders. So here's our classic faders, similar to meters. This is, you know, where this is the equivalent of doing everything just straight in Designer with the properties, is the classic one. Then we can get into layers where we can do backgrounds. We can do images, we can do gradients. There's lots of fun options for that. Tyler pointed out as we were doing the practice for this one that you can actually have a pressed option for the fader cap. So that's something that I'm going to go back and add to this later, which is why you should all be using GitHub for these files, because once I do that, you can just pull in my changes and you will get them. So that's how we do these. And then the last one for that is film strip. So we have a fader that goes through, and this is all just basically the image changes. I see we have a couple questions. Was there anything
Yeah.
else I was supposed to talk to you about this? Let me just check my notes about. All right, so we talked about please don't copy and paste the whole thing, although it will run on glass. We showed you the style component, the text component button. Yeah, I think we showed you everything. And then just FYI, here's all the CSS for that. So you can see that OTF needs a little format thing here. We've got some CSS variables in here, and then basically I've added a ton of comments in here just basically show you all the different options for things. Yeah, and we can pause for questions.
A couple questions, and I think I need a little more clarification from Tyler. He asked what the best practice is for loading and pushing newer updated code to my core without losing the last known good version. And I'm assuming you're talking about CSS, but I don't know that for sure. So if you could clarify that for us.
Yeah. Yeah, we're looking to do some stuff about version control, so stay tuned for that later. But using something like GitHub is a great option for making sure you always start from the most recent file. Um, if you start from the most recent file, then you should be good. If you're not sure if you have the most recent file, I always save a copy from the core, and I'll usually update the file name to just say, this is the date I downloaded it and all of that. But the nice thing about GitHub is you can actually go in and pull down previous versions. So if you realize you messed something up, you can go back and pull a previous one and start from that one. But yeah, that is the age-old AV programmer problem. So stay tuned for more of that.
You could also use Reflect because you get design backups in Reflect.
Yes,
So
good. Oh man. 10 points for Tyler. Yes.
I
Reflect
love
is
that feature.
Yes,
It's
Reflect is constantly backing up your files. So if your core dies, you can actually go in and pull in the most recent version from that, I believe. And then also it will do golden backups. So you can say this is the one, this is the state it was in when I left. And obviously when I left the job site, it was perfect. So you want to make sure that you save that so you can always roll it back to that. And it will also, every time you load a file, it will save I think the last five.
5.
Five.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is you can click on it and export that file out. So even if you don't want to push it back to the core, you can always go out and just retrieve the last third file that was in there. So
Yeah. So when I was still working for Pro Services, I loved it when our customers were on Reflect, because if I had to make a change, I would just go to Reflect, pull down the file, make sure I had and then I knew I had the most recent version.
yeah.
So,
Another good comment is including the firmware version in the file name too,
yeah.
especially with with our platform and the versions of Designer and stuff. It's always nice to have that in there versus having to open it, figure out where it was used, stuff like that.
Yep.
Another question is, what does it mean if there's no visible changes between the various Roboto fonts?
Well, if there's no visible change, it probably means something didn't work quite right. You should see a change between them. Um,
I didn't notice if that was, I think it's
what's it? Combo
intro.
box?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Bottom, mono slab. Yeah, so maybe something. All right, well, I gotta go in and take a look at that. You should see a difference. This is also a good chance to mention that there is an option in CSS to go in and set. Let's see, where is it? So we have these -QSC extensions. There's a dash QSC font style, so you can specify that something is normal, bold, semi-bold, all of that. Um, so that is an option if you're using any font that's built into Designer, is that you can have something that uses a different font style.
Someone,
Um,
so along those lines, so someone asked about italics, and that is not one of the options in that font style. But I don't know, is there another way to do italics?
um, so basically if you, here, I'm going to go out of emulation for a second, and actually that's good because we're about to go on to another font one. So if we go and we click on properties and we click on, I always lock all my layers, so we will unlock this one. So if I click on this guy right here, um, so basically all those drop downs are the equivalent of these. Um, this font style right there, anything that's in this font style is available in CSS. So you should have the option to do italics if there's an italic version of that font in Designer. The thing where it gets a little bit tricky is some of the fonts have different options. So
Yeah.
if I was to go in there and change it to Adamina, there's only regular. If I go to Slabo, and that might actually be part of why we're having issues in there. We only have regular for that, but Montserrat gives us more options. So Montserrat gives us a ton of options. Um, so um, so you, if you're gonna be, generally you're gonna want to just pick a font. And then you can use that QSC font style and then have it be there. But yes, you should have a black italic, a bold italic. It gets a little more complicated if you're using a TTF. Unfortunately, we don't support like different font options. So if you wanted to have, if I wanted to use this god awful, sorry, if you like this font, that's no shade towards you, but it's not good for a UCI because it's hard to read. If you wanted to, if you dislike your users and you want to use a font that's going to be hard to read, um, you will have to import an italic version of it, a bold version of it, a regular version of it, and then you would just reference them as that font.
Cool.
Um,
The rest of them we can answer. We probably should keep going.
we should keep going.
If we have time at the end, we can
Okay.
swing back to some of these. So
Okay. Yeah. All right, so we'll just close out of this one. We won't save it because who knows what I did for this one. Okay, so the next file that we're going to do is our system customization file. And the idea behind this file is if you had like a base code or a template sort of a thing that you wanted to be able to deploy in multiple places, so basically have a similar code set for everything, but there might be small differences between them, and also to regionalize it. So one of the things we're going to show you is actually how to change the language on the panel in this one, which I think is really fun. All right, so so a similar setup to all of our other files. There's always going to be sort of an instructions page that will give you some information about what's in it, some instructions on how to use it. There's also a README for all of these if you're pulling things down from GitHub. But I like to have it right there in the file so you can grab it. So the first page we start with is, this is a room control script. This is like kind of a stripped down version of something that I worked with on Dustin Boyle, worked on with Dustin Boyle when I worked for Pro Services, of a script that kind of controls the whole room. And it's sort of like a single point of control for you. So it gives you the ability to have an on and an off button, a warming and a cooling, volume controls and all of that. And basically what we've done is I've thrown just a bunch of random components onto a page, and then we're able to sort of control them all through the script, which just sort of, I think, makes it easier to have a single point of control. It also means that if you have to go in and update what you're doing with your volume or something like that, you don't have to like re-drag everything, relink everything on your UCI, because we're doing everything through the script. It also means that it's got stuff like motion control, warm up, cool down, all of that built into it. So you know that all of that is going to be the same. Oh, one thing I will note about my files is a lot of them have these quick tip icons in there. So it's like if you need a little bit more information, you just double click on those and it creates a pop-up window. So these are pop-up buttons, which is one of my favorite underutilized designer components, and it gives you a little bit more information about that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit emulate so we can open this bad boy up. Give it a second. Screen sharing and emulation are just not friends. So I've intentionally left this in a compromised state so that we can show how all of that works. We're going to do a little bit more about this status component and reflect on our third file. So stay tuned for that. But basically, you have the ability to turn a system on. It locks out the buttons. It shows a warming, all of that. We're going to change all of the things that might change per room down here in this room settings section. This is sort of like just what I think are some good generic things. Please feel free to take this, modify it, update it, make it work for you. The room control script has a ton of comments in it. Like everything I write has a lot of comments because my hope is that that helps you figure out how everything works. But basically, these are the things that I find are very common things that will change between rooms. We also have these little icons in here that explain what exactly they do. So right now I have set a 2-second warm up and a cool down. So this is a system that has a very nice flat panel TV. So it doesn't need a lot of time for a warm up and cool down. But say you had a super old projector, you could go in and say, actually, it takes forever for it to warm up and even longer for it to cool down, and you just change it right there. It's got the motion controls built into it. We're pulling this in from, I think, a GPIO, but I've put a toggle in line so you can go in and change that. The system is already on, so it doesn't do anything. You can change the mode for it. So you can say motion will turn it on, lack of motion will turn it off. You can set it to only have the lack of motion turn it off, and then we could also go in and disable it. So if I turn this off, it's going to be in its timeout period now. So right now I've said, after the motion goes away, wait 20 minutes, then shut the system off. We also have a grace timeout, which is basically I have shut the system off, and the motion will not turn it on for another minute, because otherwise you might hit the off button on the touch panel, walk out of the room, and turn the system back on. So we've got that. Props to Thomas Holt-Runze. That was his suggestion. We also have a default volume that we're setting for the system. So it will always go to this when we're done. We're controlling everything using component .new in the script. We've got drop-down buttons where it is figuring out what each component is, like what the component type is. So it's basically making a drop-down list for you of it's only finding the generic display components and putting them there, and you can pick them. We could also go in and clear it out if we wanted to. You see that it's turned pink. It's caused a compromise there, and it says invalid component selection. I've done this on purpose. It's part of the programming challenge that's in here where you have to go in and fix it. So as much as it kills me to watch this looking like that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to leave it like that. But basically, let's say you had a video bridge in your system or any of these other things in the system and you change the script name, it will alert you to the fact that it can no longer connect to the component that you had selected. So that's those. So then we have our system components behind the scenes. Just a quick note that another thing that's really great for making a dynamic file that might need to be customized occasionally is to use the generic display component. This uses an official plugin that you can download from Asset Manager. So our team wrote it. Obviously, it's not quite working right now because I don't have a display to connect to, but it's got all sorts of options for different display types, different display models. It'll do an Ethernet control. It'll also do a serial control. So you see that there's a little serial pin right there. So you could connect that into that. So stick one of these in your file. And, if they go from an LG to an NEC, it's literally just go in and select can't click today. There we go. You go in and select it and it will change it. The IP changes, you change all of that in there. There's also the option of a custom display. So if I click this box right here, this says custom device, I can go in and I can change all of this stuff. And then basically I go in and I put in my own custom controls and it'll do that. So really great option um, if the display, if basically when I'm putting together a room that, maybe we're doing a system that has 25 different rooms and, 90% of them all have the same stuff, but there's 10% of the file that might change slightly. I try and figure out what those are going to be, and then I try and script it or make it a drop down, something like that. So if you know that all of the rooms are basically the same, but some of them will have different TVs, you can go in and use the generic display, and then you don't have to worry about it. Sometimes it's good to use these anyways because you show up on site and it turns out the displays were back ordered and they switched it to something else, and you get to be a hero by changing a drop down and having it all still work. The other thing that we have as an option in this file is your classic code pins. So sometimes there's stuff that might change and it doesn't make sense to put it in the script because it's specific to just one room or its own logic or something like that. So we have these little triggers that every time the system turns on or turns off. So now, of course, it's going to be cooling for 3 minutes. Those are going to fire. So now you can go in and you can see that I just basically have these triggers that are going to a snapshot controller, and now it says system is off because that's what my snapshot does. We also have some video controls in here just to make the touch panel work, but we're not doing anything with it. Here is UCI Text. So this is where I wrote a helper script that will change the language on the panel. So basically we're pulling everything in from JSON string. The easiest way to work with stuff like this is literally just to copy and paste it into Visual Studio so you can go in and make changes. The nice thing about that too is that you get the colors and everything. It'll kind of, it'll open and close brackets for you. It'll give you a warning if you've done anything wrong. So basically what this thing does is we have some global stuff in here. So the room name, the phone number, the email address, and what the default language is. That's always going to be the same, but it'll be the same for this system, but it might change per room. So instead of having to go in and manually change the room name, we can call it the deep dive room. Copy and paste it back in. So I always just delete it out, paste it back in. And now we can go into our UCA layout and let's see. Oh, it's still cooling down. Um, oops. And that will change. So go through all of this if you want, and it'll just kind of shows you how to pull it in. And props to all my AETs because this is all sort of crowdsourced internally to get all the different languages. So then the other thing I did slightly differently for this system is that you'll see we have 3 user controls. And this is basically just to show you that you can do just about anything with code pins, with component controls, or with script notifications. So, if you're not comfortable using Lua, you can still do a ton of stuff using pins and control components. So all of the controls for the UCI live right here. And we're doing all of our controls directly from that. Then we get a little bit more complicated and we use component controls for stuff. So then basically our UCI is referencing everything that is part of this room control script. And then it also uses a UCI script for showing and hiding layers, all of that. And then the final example uses script notifications, which we're going to talk a little bit more with our last file. But basically, we've got some bidirectional communication with this script, and it's using script notifications instead of control components, which makes it like a lot more scalable. But any of these should work. And then we have a programming challenge for this one. So I pointed out that we have an invalid component. The first step of it is to go in and fix that. So basically this will take you through a bunch of different steps. As you complete it, each step, it will show you the next thing that you have to do. And then at the end of it, you get a fun little animation and bragging rights. So here are our different panels. So you see that this has now changed to be the deep dive room. We have a help desk page, and our help desk number and our email come from that JSON file as well. And then everything is in different languages. So we can go in and change it to Chinese, which I think looks really cool. Pro tip, if you're going to do anything in German, make sure you have a lot of room for it because German words are huge. And then we can just switch between the languages. If you wanted to add a new language, you just go in and add it to that JSON. So basically, it makes it very scalable. And that's actually part of the programming challenge is to add a new language. Make sure I hit everything I wanted to say for that. We have the room settings. Yeah, pointed out. Oh, and then the one thing about our no code is it does have one little script thing here. I'm calling this dip a toe into Lua. There are some controls that you really can't change without using scripting. So changing the legend of a button, which is basically the text that shows up on a button. So basically, um, I can link directly to this text. Basically, it's dragged onto the panel, and if it changes, it changes. I cannot do that for this because it is the legend of my button. So we're doing that in scripting. So, but the good news for all of you out there who are like, well, I don't do scripting, so I don't pay for my script license is dun 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 in 10.0, you don't have to pay for a script license anymore. Yay! Everybody loved that. So, if you were looking to try scripting, now is your chance. So, just some basic stuff for that. Any pressing questions before we move on?
The one is the room customization reference file. I don't think it's on the GitHub because they're not able to find it. I've
Oh,
had two different people ask about that.
okay. Um, let's see. Oh, it helps if you go to repositories. Oh, it's under system customization. It's right there. And it should be public.
System. Okay.
Shame on me. Shame on me. Here, I will drop that as a question. I'm going to type it as an answer to William Hamill's because we had two in here with the reference files one.
And then the other one was from before that I didn't get to was adding additional Google material icons. I couldn't find that answer, so I wasn't sure if you knew about some of them not being available in CSS.
Yeah, so if you go to, so just as an FYI, you can use Google Material icons. They're sort of natively built into Designer, so you can use those in your CSS. Um, the we use the solid version of everything, I believe. And if you go to like, I think it's materials.google.com or something like that, there's a page where you can see all of the icons. We don't have all of those. If there's that one that you need, this is me talking off the cuff, but maybe just open up a ticket for that. If you're like, hey guys, you don't have this one. There is some cool stuff coming with CSS and icons that I am not allowed to talk about, but you guys are you will eventually be super happy with how all of that works. But yes, You can also import the Google Materials font as a TTF. So if you find that there are some icons that you want to use, just import it as a TTF, and then that gives you access to the other font weights of it and all of their icons. Um, if you're gonna go, and that's if you like the look of it. If you're gonna go ahead and import an icon font, I would say pick an icon font that you like really like and use that. But if you need to extend it, that is an option. Um,
Just FYI, you have 7 minutes.
I know.
It's hard.
I love how I was like, oh, there's, we're gonna run out of time or we're gonna have too much time at the end. No, just
Never.
never. Me talk forever? No. All right. All right. So our last one is on UCI script notifications. Um, and this was in honor of the fact. So we've had script notifications for a while. I guess I haven't actually said what those are. Script notifications is basically a way for scripts to talk to each other or to just sort of talk in one direction. You publish a notification and it sends it out. It's something you can do where one script publishes a notification, another script subscribes to that notification, and then anytime something changes, you publish it, and you either get some text or you can pass a table to it. So it's a way of sending stuff back and forth between scripts without having to do a million code pins or having to like set event handlers on, 30 different items. You just get a script and it sends everything out. So we've had that for a while. We added UCI script notifications in a more recent version of Designer. So this is something so now you can subscribe to notifications in a UCI script and get all of the information. So this sort of shows you some stuff that you can do with it. So as always, there's an instructions page that kind of gives you some information. There's also a README file that goes with this one. Our first example is an announcement. So think of an announcement, that this sort of style of it is kind of like multicast, where I have my script here. It is sending out announcements, and um, any script in this file can subscribe for announcements and get that information every time we send it out. Um, so it's kind of a one-to-many. We are also using a monitoring proxy in here. Um, so every time the announcement changes, it is updating this monitoring proxy based on some status and text for that. And just another fun new one that we announced at Activate is actually, no, we didn't announce it at Activate. It's been out there for a while, but nobody knows about it. So FYI, monitoring proxies, free now. You don't pay for peripherals. So you could make all of this work on the free tier of Reflect, and you don't have to pay us any money for it. It's just yours. So you're welcome.
It was all Hope. She did all.
Yes, it was just me. It was all me.
Just,
Just
yep.
me. Just me. I ran in and I coded it myself and I wrote an alternative payment system and yeah. No, so stick monitoring proxies in everywhere because why not? It's free. It's like when you get that soda with free refills, just keep going back up. Um, so this script kind of shows you how to publish an announcement, and it also shows you how to set a status based on different numbers. So that's a fun one. So there's a drop down in here. I can say, hey, there are cookies in the break room, and my monitoring proxy stays as okay because cookies in the break room is a good thing. And then my UCI script has subscribed to this notification, so it gets it. It knows that there are cookies in the break room. And then I wrote a little code snippet in there that does a GeoCities style blinking text. I think the function is called like activate GeoCities mode. Um, but then we could actually go and say, uh-oh, there is a bear in the break room. So now we've gone into a false status because we should not have bears in the break room. Maybe we shouldn't tempt them with cookies. And so there's that one. We could also say, bring a shrubbery to the courtyard, one that looks nice and not too expensive. And now we're in an initializing state. So this just kind of shows you how to do all of that. And then we can go in and we can clear all of that out. So we're announcing to reflect and we're announcing to the world all of that. This file gets a little bit more complicated where we have a template and then you can basically copy and paste it. The good news is the programming challenge for this is literally the instructions on how to do that. So if you just read all this stuff, follow it exactly and do it, you will win the programming challenge. So basically I've created a template. We're doing another similar thing to that previous file where we have kind of a room control script that's managing all the controls and then some controls behind the scenes. We're also doing another thing in here where we have a room configuration. So the things that are the same and are different between the rooms. So you can change the room name, the help desk information. You can have different help requests for each system and responses, and then also we can change the source names in here. And then we just have an example of using that in here. So if I turn the system off, it goes back and forth between it. When we're using notifications for all of that. We can change the volume from here, mute it, all of that fun stuff. We have our different sources. So it shows you how to change this is using dynamic CSS on the buttons to change the icons. So you could have a different icon for them. And then we can have different source names as well. And then everybody loves a good help desk UCI. So this also includes a help desk in there. So we can turn on our notification. We're using another monitoring proxy over here. I mean, go wild with the monitoring proxies, right? They're free now. So it says fault because somebody has put something in. It is going to pull in the text of whatever it is from this drop-down menu. So right now it just says, please select a help request. So you would see this in reflect as that someone has said that there's a problem, but they haven't selected anything yet. And then we can go in, so we can say the room PC spacebar isn't working. It will show over in there. You can either type something in here directly and then just hit send and it will show there. But there's also a drop down that will populate it. So you set that and you hit the great CSS Hope. Good job. No notes. And then they can just go in and clear that off. You clear this out. This will, I believe this auto clears after like 30 seconds, or you can just clear it out. And then once they say there's no issues, this goes back to okay. And then the programming challenge. So we're doing some stuff with UCI variables to have it match. Please check out the help file for this because there's a really great example in there of bidirectional script notification. So basically each script has to point to the other one. And that's how you get stuff to work. So if I was to go in here and manually mute it from here, you see it's going to populate over here, and that's because it got the notification that the volume changed and it updated the panel accordingly. Then I can unmute it for over here. This gets the notification from the panel and it changes that. So that's how those work. They go back and forth. And yeah, and so you can follow my example, but you can also, all of this is in the help file and it's really well done. And oh my gosh, it's 12:01 and we've been through all of our files. Go me. I'm gonna stop. Thank you. Whoop, whoop. Everyone like that. Any other questions?
Does publishing and subscribing work between cores? I mean, I could think of a few ways to do
There's
that.
a few ways to do it. I don't believe that the script notifications work that way, but I haven't played around with it, so don't quote me on that one. There are some other options. The other thing I did want to say for this, oh, I see the other question that came in, and I am going to keep showing this just to show you, there's some stuff in there. We're gonna do more reference files, and I'm putting out new content all the time. So if intercore communication is something that people are interested in, I will definitely put something together for that. So yeah, that's my other pitch for this is send me your ideas, send me your requests. I've heard some from some very good programmers that they use my CSS reference file. They'll just keep it in a second window so that they can copy and paste it. Um, and so that to me said that's a really helpful thing for the community. And so I'm going to be making more reference files that can be copied and pasted based on that feedback that I've gotten. So yeah, let me know what's helpful. Let me know what's not helpful. Let me know what's hurtful. Let me know if you think my stupid animations are stupid, because I want them to be stupid. I did see a question come in about using Lua modules, and I think having a file specifically on that would be super helpful. But I will show you that. I think it's in here.
It is.
Um, so you saw that I have this component selector that I use in a bunch of my files, where it auto-populates stuff and it goes pink if it doesn't work or if you've selected it wrong and everything. It's actually a Lua module that I am using on the back end for a bunch of these, and that's so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. I am, and I also have a Lua module that helps with like changing, like doing colors between like RGB and hex and things like that. And you'll see that sort of in a lot of my files. But what I'm hearing is that the people want some content on Lua modules. So let's do that. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, those are super helpful. I use them quite often.
Yes. Yeah.
I have one just called, and I think James Martin started it, but I was like, that's a great idea. So I have a Lua module called Helpers, just like he has one called Helpers, and put all the quick stuff in there that just does all my Lua stuff for me to start. That
Oh, I
way,
like that.
start at 20% instead of 0 every time. So
I'm gonna steal that from you and we're gonna turn that into a reference file.
yes, let's do
It's
it.
cool. It's cool though, because I'll put your name in the README. So yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I really love about the content that I'm creating is that I work with so many really smart, helpful, awesome people like Tyler, like all sorts of other folks. And so anytime somebody has a good idea, I will stick it in the file. I always make sure that I thank them for it. Um, Eugene Dunn from our plugins team will often QA stuff for me. So he'll just like open it up and, make sure I haven't missed something stupid. He'll double check some stuff for me. He's really good at TCP server stuff because those can be, and actually that's my next reference file is going to be a TCP server that you can copy and paste out. Um, so, um, so yeah, it's definitely a communal effort, these files. And I've used community member stuff in there too. So, Shogo Hori is like the man when it comes to easy SVG stuff. And I've used some of his stuff in the programming challenges if you get it right. And there's like fun stuff on the panel. A lot of that is I'll take some stuff from community stuff. Uh, I like David Barton's comment about
Right. That
corporum
was
and centralized controls for power. Yeah. So yeah, I love that stuff. So yeah, we have some plugin stuff. I think there's some plugins that you can use for things like that. And yeah, I will work on some intercore stuff if people are interested in that. So yeah, I hope.roth@qsc.com. Please feel free to send me an email and let me know. It always makes my day to know that it actually, stuff worked for people. Um, and and it's not going to hurt my feelings if you have a problem with it or if there's something that doesn't work right. I go and make updates to this stuff whenever I can, which is another reason to use GitHub. If you want to stay for a couple minutes, I can just show you a couple things in GitHub. Do you have time, Tyler?
yeah.
We'll just show
Oh,
you.
absolutely.
We'll
Yeah.
just show you how to clone stuff, and I think that was it. So yeah, thanks everybody. Okay, let me open. I'll share my screen again. But for the rest of you, have a great day and thank you for joining us. Um,
Everyone wants to stick around.
they like me. They really like me. Is that having a Sally Fields moment? All right. It helpful if you actually hit the share button, I'm told. All right. All right. So here's GitHub. Bitbucket's another option. There's all sorts of options for there. So I have so if you open up GitHub desktop, um, there's lots of different ways to do it. You can do it in a command line. I like using GitHub desktop because it makes life easier. So most of these are my repositories, but I have subscribed to some other people's repositories as well. So here we'll go into, this is a really cool file and that's in the code exchange. So go and check this one out. It lets you change peripherals in the like on the fly, like update host names and stuff. It's really powerful stuff. So Bart Forpaul, who's one of our AETs out of Germany, created this one. So it's not my repository. So I have cloned this to my machine. And anytime he makes a change, I can pull them. And we can also open some stuff in Visual Studio Code if it's like a text file, or we can just pull it down. So then if I go into the repository, if I say fetch, it'll go in and it'll look for changes. So he's made changes. I can pull the origin. It takes a couple seconds and bam, done. Now I have all of Bart's updated stuff. So this is really powerful stuff. There's a ton more stuff that you can do with this, but the most basic thing is just here. I have the newest version of the file. If you're in GitHub, there's an option in here to say open with GitHub desktop. Let's see. What I should have done is had a repository in here and just pulled it down. Let's see. I don't know. This repository needs my help, so I'm going to clone it. So I'm going to go in here into the code and I'm going to say open with GitHub desktop. It opens it up in here and then it gives me the option to clone it. You can pick the local path. So one thing that's pretty neat is I know Thomas has done this. I have one as well that's like a user components. You can pick a different folder within here. So if we went into documents and we went into my QSC folder and you go into user components, you see I have a folder in here that's called communities. UC is basically user components. Um, you can specify this as the location, then anytime you update it in GitHub, it'll update here, which means it'll update it in Designer. You could do the same thing with plugins. So like say you had like some company plugins or something. I believe it'll work if you put them in a folder. I actually haven't tried that, but you can have them show up there. So that's some pretty powerful stuff. But I'm going to just put this on my desktop for now so I can remember to delete it later. I say that's the folder where I want it to go to. I hit clone. Wait, it's a big one. By the way, this is my worst mother in the universe mug. I made it myself, or sorry, worst mother in the multiverse because my daughter got really mad at me and she was like, "You're the worst mother in the world. No, you're the worst mother in the universe. No, you're the worst mother in the multiverse." So I made myself, I was proud of myself for that one. I felt like I had done something right. So I made myself a mug. We don't have to watch the paint dry, but basically this will take every file that's in the repository, it'll clone it to your computer, and then um, um, I'll just move this over here, and then it gives me that folder. So it's still pulling stuff down. You'll get a Git file in there. There's a bunch of stuff that we should go over at some point. You can have it ignore files. So if there's files that it needs, but we don't actually want to sync, you can have it ignore those. Everything should initialize with a README. So like actually, here, let me open this up. This is another one of the files that I did. It shows you how to use the command send and receive plugin, which is super helpful. This is one of the first files that I did. So feel free to pull that down and play with it as well. So it has my Q-SYS files in there. It has a license file in there. It also has that README. So if we go into GitHub desktop, I can go into here. And it shows all of that. You see all of your previous commits. You see that for the README, because it's an actual like text file, it'll go in and you can see where I made different changes. Um, uh, and uh, and you can see that's fine because I didn't care about that clone anyways. So you can see what I did, and then there's an option to go back and like go back to that version. So this is pretty powerful in terms of being able to fix things, go back, do your changes. And then uh you can also if you have if for example I had made a change to my README, it would show up in here and then you would see like a little preview there as well. So I think that's good for a basic tutorial. Um
I have one question.
oh yeah,
Uh,
that is the $1,000,000 question.
Right. I was gonna let you answer that
There you go. All
one.
right. So Pat Santucci says, how do you handle .qsys files in Git to avoid merge attempts? Woohoo! Thanks for the hot potato, Tyler. Appreciate you.
Yep, no problem.
Um, we're working on some stuff. We are aware of the fact that having a binary file, is an issue in terms of GitHub. So where GitHub is the most powerful is where it can actually see the text file. A .qsys file is too complicated for that. What I generally suggest is to do a repo per project. So don't do one big repo for like all of your files or even just for a customer. Like really do a repo uh per project and really everyone has it does involve some discipline in terms of people checking files out, checking them back in. There are some things you can do in the command line if you have just hopelessly messed everything up. You can kind of purge things, go back. Okay, Tony Petrangelo says we do a repo per client and then branch each project. That's awesome. I like that. So yeah, it's basically you want everything in one place, but you also don't want so many things in one place that you're going to end up with conflicts. So, um, yeah, acknowledge that it is not ideal, but that there are, there's some ways you can do it. One of the other things that's really powerful about GitHub is the ability to put comments in there and see stuff. So when I shared my screen out, you could see in my previous commit, it kind of said, oh, this is the one where I fixed this, or this is the thing where I fixed that. So, there's some automated stuff that you can do with that if it's text files. So GitHub is great for working on plugins because you can literally do it. Um, and and you can get there's a lot of stuff you can do for auto-generated comments if you're working with actual text files. But a lot of times when I am making changes to one of my files that's already been published, is I try to keep just a running list of things that I've changed in the comments that go with the commit so people can go in and see that. Pat says he treats them with Git LFS, but always looking for better answers. One repo per system, persisting across projects through time. So, yeah, and if anyone has questions or feedback for any of that, I know that our product managers really like to get that user feedback, and I have gotten some I've put people in contact with people to make sure that we're getting that feedback in. So I think that's it. Any last questions? Thank you all for your feedback and your questions. It's really helpful to know that I'm not just talking to Tyler. I mean, I talk with you, Tyler. It's cool.
Yeah, we talk.
We talk all the time.
Yeah. Tony would like to know if the office meme is in the repo. I told
It
him no,
it
but it could
isn't.
be if
It
Jeff
could be.
allows
It
it.
could be.
Jeff would have to
Um,
allow it, I
Jeff
believe.
would have to allow it. We have some inside jokes. I the challenges, the programming challenges, I always try and have just like a little funny thing that shows up, if you get it right. And I'm always looking for funny things to show up. So if you have suggestions for that, um, so maybe that meme will
Magically appears
we'll
somewhere.
we'll make an appearance. Yeah. So yeah, now you got to go back and do all the programming challenges and you can find all the funny stuff. I had someone reach out and say, like, I did one of your programming challenges just because everyone said the Easter egg was funny. And then they ended up using the thing that they learned from that on an actual job. So
Weird how that works.
I know that's why we put those in there. So, and the other thing that you'll get to with those is, if you complete the challenge, the controls for the challenge and some other stuff are in a password protected container. Once you complete the challenge, you get the password for that, and then you can open it up and see some more stuff. So awesome. Well,
Awesome.
thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for interacting with the comments or the content. And if you want to find more fun stuff, come and join us at developers.qsc.com. Please sign up. Follow me on there so you can see stuff when it's new. Subscribe to our repositories so you can get updates. Am I missing anything, Tyler? Smash that subscribe button. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yeah,
Um,
no, you hit it. Just make sure you get on communities, get involved because
yep,
it
yep,
helps all of us. So,
yeah. And thank you, Tyler, for moderating today.
absolutely.
All right. Have a
All
good
right.
one, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.